Hello there, and welcome to the Peaceful Sleep channel. I'm so glad you found your way here. Perhaps the day has been long filled with noise and motion. Or maybe you are simply someone who finds peace in the quiet corners of the world, in the vast and ancient stories our planet has to tell. Either way, tonight's journey is for you. There is nothing you need to do now but rest. Let your breath slow to a gentle rhythm, your thoughts soften at the edges, and your body grow heavy, as if settling into the warm, still sand of a desert at twilight. Because tonight, we are not drifting through the stars, but through a world just as vast and mysterious here on Earth. We are wandering into the desert. Not the harsh, empty place of daytime stories, but the desert of deep quiet, of ancient stillness, of starlight that touches the ground. A world sculpted by wind and time, where life moves in secret rhythms and the sand itself can sing. Some of what you hear tonight may surprise you. Other discoveries might simply float by, like a gentle breeze, curious and quietly unforgettable. If this kind of peaceful wonder brings you calm, consider liking and subscribing. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, let yourself settle. Let the world outside fade away. And let us begin this slow and soothing journey through the miracles of the desert. Some sand dunes can sing. In the quietest corners of the world's great deserts, from the Sahara to the Gobi, the sand is not always silent. When conditions are just right, the dunes can emit a low, resonant hum, a sound that has been described as a distant chant, a soft organ note, or the earth's own gentle breathing. This is the phenomenon of singing sand, and it is both a mystery and a marvel of physics. The song is not created by wind whistling over the peaks of the dunes, but by the sand itself. It happens when a mass of sand begins to move in avalanche, cascading down the steep face of a dune. For the sound to occur, the sand grains must be of a nearly uniform size, perfectly round, and free of dust or pollution. They must also be incredibly dry, as millions of these grains slide against one another. Their friction creates vibrations. The layers of sand beneath them act as a natural amplifier, and the entire dune begins to resonate, producing a deep harmonic tone that can last for several minutes and be heard from miles away. Each desert sings with its own unique voice. The pitch of the song depends on the size of the sand grains and the volume on the size of the avalanche. Imagine standing at the base of a towering dune as the sun sets, the air growing cool, and hearing this sound rise from the earth beneath you. It is a song without a singer, a vibration born from nothing more than gravity friction and the patient shifting of sand. Ancient travelers wrote of these sounds with a mixture of fear and awe, attributing them to desert spirits or forgotten gods. But today, we know it is simply the desert itself, humming a quiet, ancient lullaby to the setting sun. There are dunes shaped like giant stars. The dunes we most often imagine are crescent-shaped, sculpted by a wind that blows from a single, steady direction. But in some deserts, where the winds are complex and shift throughout the year, something far more extraordinary takes shape: star dunes. These are colossal pyramids of sand, with 3 or more arms radiating from a central peak, resembling a star when viewed from above. They are among the tallest and most ancient of all dune types, some reaching heights of over 300 meters taller than many skyscrapers. A star dune does not migrate across the desert like other dunes. Instead, it grows upward. Winds from different directions push sand up its various faces, piling it higher and higher at the peak. The arms of the star act like ridges channeling the flow of sand and stabilizing the structure over millennia. They are not temporary forms, but enduring monuments. Scientists believe some star dunes in places like the Namib Desert may be thousands of years old, having remained in the same location while the world changed around them. To see one is to witness a living sculpture, a compass made of sand recording the history of winds that have blown across that spot for centuries. They stand as silent sentinels in the vast emptiness, their sharp crests catching the first and last light of day. Each arm is a testament to a season of wind, each peak a story of balance and accumulation. They are not just piles of sand. They are archives of motion built grain by grain, by the invisible, patient choreography of the atmosphere. The color of desert sand tells a story of time and geology. Not all sand is the pale golden yellow of postcards. The deserts of the world are painted in a palette of stunning and subtle colors, each shade a clue to the sand's origin and its long journey. The iconic white sands of New Mexico, for example, are not made of traditional quartz at all. They are composed of pure gypsum, a soft mineral that has dissolved from the surrounding mountains and recrystallized in the valley below, forming a shimmering, snow-like sea of dunes. In the deserts of Australia and the American Southwest, the sand glows with a deep rusty red. This color comes from a thin coating of iron oxide that has formed on each grain of quartz over thousands of years. It is in essence a desert of rust, where time and oxygen have slowly painted every particle. The older the dune, the deeper and richer its color. Elsewhere, you can find sands of other hues. Volcanic deserts like those in Iceland or Hawaii can have beaches of pure black sand made from the eroded basalt of ancient lava flows. In some rare coastal deserts, green sands appear colored by the mineral olivine. Each handful of sand is a collection of tiny stones, a ground-down history of the mountains, rivers, and volcanic fires that created it. To look across a desert of red or white is not just to see a landscape, but to see the signature of deep time, a story of geology written in the smallest of particles spread across the horizon like a vast, silent canvas. Some desert floors are covered in a natural armor of stone. In many of the world's driest and windiest deserts, you will find vast plains that are not covered in soft sand, but in a tight, interlocking mosaic of stones. This is called desert pavement, or reg, and it forms over thousands of years through a process of slow, patient sorting. As the wind blows across the surface, it carries away all the fine particles, the dust and the sand, leaving only the heavier pebbles and stones behind. Over time, these stones settle into a smooth, tightly packed layer that armors the ground beneath it. This pavement acts as a protective shield, preventing the wind from eroding the finer soil below. It can be so perfectly fitted together that it looks almost like a man-made cobblestone road stretching for miles across the flat expanse. Walking across it, you might hear a faint crunch underfoot, the sound of stones that have been locked in place for centuries. These surfaces are also home to a hidden world. A dark, shiny coating called desert varnish often forms on the stones a thin layer of clay and minerals cemented in place by microorganisms that live on the rock. This varnish can take thousands of years to develop, and ancient peoples often carved petroglyphs into it, scraping away the dark layer to reveal the lighter rock beneath. The desert pavement, then, is more than just a stony surface. It is a stable, ancient ecosystem, a living armor that protects the desert from its own relentless wind, a canvas for both microscopic life and the earliest human art. It is a testament to the idea that even in a place defined by movement, stillness finds a way to endure. When the sand settles and the last light of day fades from the horizon, the desert reveals its other half, the sky. In a world with so little to hold the eye on the ground, the gaze naturally turns upward. And here, in the profound emptiness, the universe unfolds with a clarity found almost nowhere else on Earth. The air in the desert is exceptionally dry, carrying very little of the water vapor that blurs and softens the sky in other places. There is also very little pollution, no haze from cities, no smoke from industry to scatter the faint light of distant stars. The result is a window into the cosmos, so pure and transparent that it can feel as though you are not looking up at the sky, but floating within it. The darkness is not empty, but deep and velvety, a perfect backdrop for the diamond dust of the cosmos. It is this stillness, this perfect clarity that has drawn stargazers to the desert for millennia, from ancient astronomers to modern scientists, all seeking to read the stories written in the light. In this profound darkness, the Milky Way ceases to be a faint, hazy band and becomes what it truly is, a river of light. Away from the glare of city life, our home galaxy stretches from one end of the horizon to the other, a dense, shimmering cloud of billions of suns. You can see its structure, the dark lanes of interstellar dust that wind through its bright core like shadows on a luminous stream. You can see the clusters of stars embedded within it, glittering like jewels. In the southern hemisphere, from deserts like the Atacama, the galactic core hangs almost directly overhead, so bright that it can cast a faint shadow on the ground. To lie on your back on the cool desert sand and look up at this sight is to feel the true scale of your place in the universe. You are on a small planet, orbiting a single star on the outer arm of a vast spinning city of light. The silence of the desert allows this cosmic truth to sink in, not as a fact, but as a feeling, a sense of belonging to something immeasurably vast and beautiful. And among the familiar stars, other more subtle lights appear. One of these is the zodiacal light, a faint ghostly pyramid of light that can be seen in the west after sunset or in the east before dawn. For centuries, its origin was a mystery. Ancient cultures saw it as a celestial omen or a false dawn. But today, we know it is sunlight reflecting off a vast, flat cloud of dust that orbits the sun in the same plane as the planets. This dust is made of tiny particles left over from the formation of the solar system, remnants of asteroid collisions and evaporating comets. The zodiacal light is in essence the glowing ghost of our solar system's birth. It is so faint that it is completely invisible from anywhere, with even a small amount of light pollution. But in the pristine darkness of a desert, It becomes a soft, ethereal presence, a quiet reminder that space is not empty, but filled with the dust of ancient worlds still catching the light of its parent star across millions of miles. The desert sky has another secret glow, one that comes not from reflected light, but from the Earth's own atmosphere. This is air glow, a very faint emission of light by the planet's upper atmosphere. During the day, sunlight energizes atoms and molecules like oxygen and nitrogen. At night, as these particles relax, they release that energy as tiny photons of light, creating a soft, diffuse luminescence across the entire sky. Air glow is 100 times fainter than the Milky Way and completely invisible to the naked eye from most places. But in the desert, under perfect conditions, sensitive cameras and even the dark adapted human eye can perceive it as a subtle brightness that prevents the night from ever being truly, perfectly black. It can appear in gentle ripples or waves, moving slowly across the sky, a silent planetary aurora. It is the sky breathing a quiet exhalation of the day's sunlight, painting the darkness with colors we can barely see. The desert sky is also a theater for shooting stars. The dry, clear air makes it one of the best places on Earth to watch meteor showers. As Earth moves through the dusty trail left behind by a passing comet, tiny particles of debris burn up in our atmosphere, creating bright streaks of light. In the desert, with its wide-open horizons, you can watch these meteors fall from one end of the sky to the other. During major showers like the Perseids in August or the Geminids in December, you might see dozens, even hundreds of shooting stars in a single hour. Each one is a fleeting moment of fire, a grain of ancient ice and rock from the outer solar system, making its final luminous journey. The silence of the desert makes the experience all the more profound. There is no sound, only the sudden silent flash of light, a reminder of the constant invisible rain of cosmic dust that our planet is always passing through. For ancient peoples, the desert sky was not just a beautiful sight. It was a map, a clock, and a sacred text. The predictable movements of the sun, moon, and stars allowed them to track the seasons, to know when to plant and when to travel. The constellations told stories, myths of gods and heroes that were passed down through generations. In ancient Egypt, the rising of the star Sirius, just before the sun, was a sign that the Nile was about to flood, an event that brought life to the desert. The Nabateans, who built the city of Petra, may have aligned their buildings with the solstices and equinoxes. The desert's emptiness on the ground forced them to find order in the sky. To them, the universe was not a random collection of lights, but a grand celestial machine, a divine clockwork that governed their lives. And even today, to look up at that same sky, from that same desert, is to feel a connection to those ancient observers, to feel the same sense of wonder at the silent, steady turning of the cosmos. As the desert sun sinks below the horizon, the world transforms. The searing heat of the day gives way to a profound and spreading coolness. The air grows still, and under the faint light of the stars, a hidden world awakens. For most desert creatures, the day is a time for hiding, for waiting in the quiet dark of a burrow or in the sliver of shade beneath a rock. The night is when life truly begins. This is the world of nocturnal animals, a kingdom of shadows and whispers where survival depends not on enduring the heat, but on embracing the cool of the darkness. From the smallest insect to the most cunning predator, desert life has learned that the night is a sanctuary, a time to hunt, to forage, and to move through the world unseen. One of the most enchanting of these nocturnal creatures is the fennec fox. Living in the vast sands of the Sahara, it is the smallest fox in the world, no bigger than a house cat with a coat the color of pale cream. But its most striking feature is its ears. Enormous and delicate, they seem almost too large for its tiny face. These ears are not just for listening. They are a masterpiece of biological engineering. They are filled with blood vessels that allow the fox to radiate body heat into the cool night air, acting as a personal air conditioning system. But they are also incredibly sensitive instruments. The fennec fox can hear the faintest of sounds, the scuttling of a beetle beneath the sand, the whisper of a mouse's footsteps from far away. At night, it moves like a ghost, its large furred paws spreading its weight so it can walk silently on top of the soft sand. It is a creature made of moonlight and silence, perfectly adapted to a world where the most important events happen in the dark. Another master of the desert night is the kangaroo rat. Found in the arid lands of North America, this tiny rodent has evolved some of the most remarkable survival strategies on Earth. It can live its entire life without ever drinking a drop of water. Instead, it gets all the moisture it needs from the dry seeds it eats through a highly efficient metabolic process. Its kidneys are so effective at conserving water that its urine is almost solid. But its most famous adaptation is its movement. The kangaroo rat gets its name from its long, powerful hind legs, which allow it to leap incredible distances up to 9 feet in a single bound to escape predators like owls or snakes. It moves in a zigzagging blur, its long tufted tail acting as a rudder to change direction midair. It spends its nights gathering seeds, stuffing them into fur-lined cheek pouches, and carrying them back to its cool underground burrow. It is a tiny, bouncing marvel of efficiency, a creature that has solved the desert's 2 greatest challenges: lack of water and constant danger, with grace and astonishing athletic ability. Above the sands, the desert night has its own silent hunters. The owls of the desert, like the burrowing owl or the pallid scops owl, are masters of stealth. Their feathers have a unique soft fringed edge that muffles the sound of their wing beats, allowing them to fly in near-perfect silence. This allows them to approach their prey insects, rodents, small reptiles without being heard. Their large forward-facing eyes are designed to gather every last photon of moonlight and starlight, giving them exceptional night vision. And like the fennec fox, their hearing is extraordinary. The feathers on their face form a facial disc that funnels sound toward their asymmetrical ears, allowing them to pinpoint the location of a sound with incredible accuracy. To a mouse hiding in the scrub, the desert owl is not a sound or a shape, but a sudden, silent shadow descending from the darkness, a hunter perfectly attuned to the acoustics of the night. And beneath the cool light of the moon, another ancient creature emerges, the scorpion. Scorpions have been on Earth for over 400 million years, and they are built for survival. Their tough exoskeleton helps them retain moisture, and they can slow their metabolism to a near standstill, allowing them to survive for up to a year on a single meal. but one of their most mysterious traits is revealed only in darkness. When exposed to ultraviolet light, a scorpion's body glows with a bright, eerie blue-green light. Scientists are still not entirely sure why. It may be a way to detect moonlight and know when it is safe to come out. It could be a way of confusing prey, or even a form of communication with other scorpions. Whatever the reason, it transforms them from creatures of shadow into beings of strange, hidden light. To sweep a UV light across the desert floor at night is to see it suddenly populated with these glowing jewels, a secret world of luminescence revealed in the dark. Even the reptiles of the desert adapt to the rhythm of the night. The gecko, with its wide, unblinking eyes and specialized toe pads, is a common nocturnal hunter. Those toe pads are covered in millions of microscopic hair-like structures called setae, which allow the gecko to cling to almost any surface, even vertical glass, using the power of molecular attraction. They can scurry up rock faces and across ceilings in pursuit of insects. Many desert geckos also have a curious habit. Since they have no eyelids, they use their long, flat tongues to lick their eyes clean of dust and sand, a constant, gentle act of self-maintenance in a gritty world. They are small, quiet, and incredibly effective, a testament to the fact that in the desert, even the smallest of creatures must become a master of its environment, using physics and physiology to conquer the challenges of a life lived in the shadows. These creatures and countless others paint a picture of the desert that is far from empty. It is a world of two halves: the bright, still seemingly lifeless desert of the day, and the cool, active, and vibrant desert of the night. The transition between them is a slow, graceful changing of the guard. As the sun sets, the daytime lizards retreat to their burrows, and the nocturnal rodents emerge. The hawks give way to the owls. The silence of the heat is replaced by the soft rustle of movement in the scrub. The desert does not die at night. It is reborn. It is a reminder that life does not always thrive in the light. Sometimes it waits for the darkness, for the coolness, and the quiet to finally come alive. In the vast stillness of the desert, time itself becomes a visible force. Here, with little water to soften the landscape and few plants to hold it in place, the world is sculpted by the two most patient artists of all wind and stone. Over millions of years, these forces have worked together to create a gallery of natural sculpture on a scale that dwarfs human imagination. The desert is not empty. It is filled with architecture, but it is an architecture of subtraction, of things slowly worn away to reveal the beauty hidden within. Each arch, each mesa, each delicately balanced rock is a monument to the power of slowness, a story of erosion told in the language of geology. Perhaps the most iconic of these sculptures are the Great Desert Arches. In places like Arches National Park in Utah, hundreds of these graceful stone windows stand against the sky. Their creation begins with a solid slab of sandstone, which over eons develops deep parallel cracks due to underground pressure. Water seeps into these cracks, freezes and thaws, slowly widening them until only thin walls of rock called fins remain. Then the wind takes over. Armed with tiny grains of sand, it acts like a slow-motion sandblaster, eating away at the softer layers of the rock fins. A small cavity might form, and over thousands of years, the wind An occasional frost wedging enlarge it, carving it out until one day light breaks through. What is left is an arch, a delicate curve of stone held in perfect tension, a doorway to the sky, carved by nothing more than wind, water, and time. Each arch is a moment of geological grace, a structure that seems to defy gravity, yet is a perfect expression of it. Nearby, you may find the towering figures of mesas and buttes. These are the flat-top mountains that define the landscapes of the American West. They are the remnants of ancient plateaus, slowly dissected by erosion. A mesa, from the Spanish word for table, is a large, flat-topped hill with steep sides. A butte is simply a smaller, more isolated version, a final sentinel left behind after the surrounding land has been worn away. Both are capped by a hard, resistant layer of rock, like sandstone or basalt, which protects the softer layers beneath it from eroding. This cap acts like a shield. As wind and water carve away at the sides of the plateau, the hard cap ensures that the top remains flat. Over millions of years, the plateau shrinks, leaving behind these majestic table-like islands in the sky. To look at a mesa is to see a ghost of the land that once was a piece of a higher world preserved in stone, its flat top a memory of a time before the valleys were born. In other deserts, the forces of erosion create forms that are more whimsical and strange. These are the hoodoos or fairy chimneys, slender spires of rock that rise from the desert floor, often topped with a larger, harder stone that balances precariously on top. Places like Bryce Canyon in Utah or Cappadocia in Turkey are famous for their forests of these stone figures. Like mesas, hoodoos form when soft rock is protected by a more resistant capstone. But here, the process is more delicate. Rainwater and frost slowly chisel away at the soft rock pillar, while the capstone acts like a tiny umbrella, shielding the rock directly beneath it. The result is a tall, thin spire that seems almost impossibly balanced. They look like sculptures, each one with its own unique personality. Some tall and slender, others stout and gnarled. To walk among them is to feel as though you have entered a silent city of stone people, a crowd of ancient beings, turned to rock watching the sun rise and set over a landscape they have inhabited for millennia. The wind in the desert is not just a force of removal, it is also a master carver. When it blows steadily from one direction for thousands of years, carrying its fine load of sand, it can sculpt individual rocks into strange polished forms called ventifacts. These are stones that have been abraded, grooved, and shaped by wind-driven sand. They often have sharp edges and flat, polished faces that show the direction of the prevailing wind. Some look like abstract sculptures, their surfaces smooth and almost liquid in appearance. Others are carved into sharp keel-like shapes, resembling the prow of a ship. To find a ventifact is to hold in your hand a direct record of the wind. It is a stone that has been shaped not by water, but by air, a solid object transformed by the persistent touch of something invisible. They are the desert's quiet jewels, small, humble, and perfectly formed by the breath of the world. And sometimes, the desert's artistry creates a perfect heart-stopping moment of balance. Across arid landscapes, you can find balancing rocks, enormous boulders that rest on a tiny eroded pedestal of softer rock. They seem to defy physics as if a giant had gently placed them there, ready to topple with the slightest touch. But these structures are entirely natural formed, as the surrounding softer rock eroded away, leaving the harder boulder perched on the last remnant of its original foundation. They are a snapshot of a process, a moment of geological time frozen in place. They will eventually fall, but eventually in the desert can mean thousands of years. For now, they stand in a state of perfect, patient equilibrium, a testament to the fact that even the most powerful forces of erosion can sometimes produce moments of delicate, breathtaking balance. To wander through these landscapes is to walk through a museum where the exhibits are still being created, albeit on a timescale we can barely comprehend. The desert is not a static place. It is a world in slow, constant motion. The wind is always blowing. The frost is always working in the cracks, and the stone is always imperceptibly changing its shape. It is a reminder that even the most solid and permanent-seeming things are subject to the gentle, relentless pressures of time. The desert's beauty lies not just in its forms, but in the story of their unmaking. In a world defined by its dryness, the presence of water is nothing short of a miracle. In the desert, water is the author of all life, the hidden force that dictates where plants can grow, where animals can gather, and where humans can survive. It is a currency more precious than gold. But desert water is rarely obvious. It does not flow in wide, steady rivers or fall in gentle, predictable rains. Instead, it hides. It hides deep underground. It arrives in sudden, violent bursts, and it drifts on the air as an invisible mist. To understand the desert is to understand its secret relationship with water. A story of patience, scarcity, and surprising abundance. The most famous expression of desert water is the oasis. An oasis is a splash of impossible green in a sea of brown and gold, a place where palm trees sway, water pools, and life clusters in a dense, vibrant community. It feels like magic, but its origins are purely geological. An oasis forms where the underground water table rises to meet the surface. This happens when water from distant mountains or ancient rains has seeped deep into the earth, traveling for hundreds of miles through porous layers of rock called aquifers. When this underground river meets a depression in the land or a fault in the rock, it is forced upward, creating a spring or a seep. Around this single point of moisture, an entire ecosystem can be born. Seeds carried by wind or birds take root. Animals drawn by the scent of water gather to drink. And for millennia, humans have built their communities around these life-giving springs, creating gardens and cities in the heart of the harshest landscapes. An oasis is a reminder that the desert's surface can be deceiving. Beneath the dry, barren ground, rivers may be flowing silently and unseen. These underground rivers, or aquifers, are the desert's greatest secret. Some of them are vast, stretching for thousands of square miles beneath the sand, holding water that may have fallen as rain thousands of years ago during a wetter, greener time. The Nubian sandstone aquifer system, for example, lies beneath the eastern Sahara Desert and is the largest known fossil water aquifer in the world. It holds an amount of water equivalent to centuries of flow from the Nile River. This water is ancient, a finite resource from a different climate epoch, but it is what sustains many of the modern oases and cities in the region. This hidden water is a legacy of the past, a silent reservoir that allows life to persist in a place that now receives almost no rain at all. It is a quiet testament to the planet's long memory, a story of wetter times preserved deep within the rock. But water in the desert does not always arrive so gently. Sometimes it comes with sudden and terrifying force. A flash flood is one of the desert's great paradoxes. A place defined by a lack of water can in an instant be consumed by it. These floods are born from thunderstorms that can be miles away, high in distant mountains. When intense rain falls on the dry, baked earth, the soil cannot absorb it quickly enough. Instead, the water rushes over the surface, funneling into the dry riverbeds and canyons known as arroyos or wadis. It gathers speed and power, picking up rocks, boulders, and debris, becoming a churning, destructive wall of water that can move faster than a person can run. A dry, silent canyon can fill with a raging torrent in a matter of minutes. These floods are dangerous, but they are also a source of life. They scour the landscape, redistribute seeds, and recharge shallow underground water sources. For many desert plants, a flash flood is the only water they will receive all year. It is a violent and unpredictable form of renewal, a reminder that in the desert, water is both a creator and a destroyer. Not all desert water is hidden or violent. In some coastal deserts, like the Namib in Africa or the Atacama in Chile, life survives on water that drifts in from the sea as fog. The Namib Desert, one of the driest places on Earth, receives a steady supply of moisture from a thick bank of fog that rolls in from the cold Atlantic Ocean almost every morning. This fog carries just enough water to sustain a unique and specialized ecosystem. Here, a creature called the darkling beetle has evolved a remarkable way to drink. At dawn, it climbs to the crest of a sand dune, tilts its body into the wind, and allows tiny droplets of fog to condense on its back. The droplets run down grooves into its mouth, giving it all the water it needs to survive. Plants, too, have adapted to harvest this airborne moisture. Lichens and specialized grasses absorb water directly from the air. The fog is a lifeline, an invisible river flowing through the atmosphere, allowing life to thrive in a place where rain almost never falls. It is a quiet, daily miracle, a testament to the ingenuity of evolution in finding water, even where there is none to be seen. Even the plants of the desert have become masters of water. The great saguaro cactus, an icon of the American Southwest, is a living water tower. Its pleated accordion-like skin can expand to absorb hundreds of gallons of water after a rare rainstorm, storing it in its spongy flesh for the long, dry months ahead. Its shallow, widespread root system is designed to capture every available drop of moisture from a wide area. Other desert plants have deep tap roots that can reach water tables far below the surface. The mesquite tree, for example, can have roots that go down over 150 feet. These plants are not just surviving, they have become experts in the art of finding, storing, and conserving the desert's most precious resource. Each one is a living lesson in patience and efficiency, a green miracle in a world of brown. For most of the year, the desert floor can seem like a landscape of suspended life. The ground is dry. The colors are muted tones of brown gray and ochre, and the world seems to be holding its breath, waiting. But beneath this quiet, patient surface, a secret is kept. Billions upon billions of seeds lie dormant in the soil, some having waited for years, even decades, for a single perfect signal. And when that signal comes, the right combination of rain and temperature, the desert undergoes one of the most breathtaking transformations in the natural world. This is the phenomenon of the super bloom. A super bloom is not just a few flowers blooming. It is a sudden explosive and synchronized eruption of life on a colossal scale. In a matter of weeks, vast stretches of arid land that were once barren are carpeted in a shimmering sea of color. Hillsides turn a vibrant orange with California poppies. Valleys fill with the deep purples and blues of lupines and phacelias. Sandy flats become a mosaic of yellow, pink, and white. The scale can be so immense that these fields of flowers are visible from space, a sudden blush of color on the face of the earth. It is a moment of impossible abundance in a place defined by scarcity. The secret to the super bloom lies in the seed bank. The soil of the desert is a living library of potential filled with the seeds of countless species of annual wildflowers. These seeds are built for patience. They have tough, durable coats that protect them from the harsh sun and from being eaten by rodents. They contain chemical inhibitors that prevent them from germinating until conditions are perfect. They are waiting for a very specific set of circumstances. A soaking winter rain that penetrates deep into the soil, followed by a period of cool but not freezing temperatures. If the rains are too light, or if a sudden heat wave arrives, the seeds will remain asleep, waiting for another year, another chance. But when the conditions are just right, the inhibitors wash away, and the seeds awaken all at once. This synchronized germination is a crucial survival strategy. By blooming all at the same time, the flowers create a massive, overwhelming display that attracts pollinators from miles around. Bees, butterflies, moths, and hummingbirds descend upon the fields in a frenzy of activity, ensuring that the flowers are fertilized and can produce the next generation of seeds. It is a feast after a long famine. For a few brief, glorious weeks, the desert hums with life. The air, usually dry and scentless, becomes thick with the sweet fragrance of nectar. The silence is broken by the buzz of countless wings. The entire ecosystem shifts its focus to this fleeting moment of plenty. The beauty of a super bloom is ephemeral. The wildflowers of the desert are annuals. They live their entire life cycle in a single season. They sprout, grow, flower, and set seed in a matter of weeks. Once their seeds are produced, their purpose is fulfilled. As the temperatures rise and the soil dries out, the flowers wither and fade, their vibrant colors vanishing as quickly as they appeared. The landscape returns to its familiar muted tones, and the desert seems to fall back into its long, quiet sleep. But it is not an end. It is simply a return to waiting. The seeds of the next generation are now scattered on the ground, ready to be buried by wind and sand, ready to join the patient seed bank where they will lie dormant, keeping the memory of the bloom alive until the rains return once more. Each superbloom is unique. The combination of flowers that appears depends on the specific timing and amount of rainfall and the temperatures of that particular year. One year, a hillside might be dominated by yellow desert sunflowers. The next, after a different pattern of rain, the same hill might be covered in purple sand verbena. This variation ensures that the desert's biodiversity remains resilient. It is a reminder that the desert is not a static, unchanging landscape. It is a dynamic system, constantly shifting and responding to the subtle cues of the climate. The superbloom is its most joyful and extravagant expression, a celebration of life's ability to wait for its moment and then to seize it with an explosion of beauty that transforms the world, if only for a little while. To witness one is to see the desert's deepest secret revealed, that beneath the dust and the dryness there is a promise of life, a promise of color, waiting for nothing more than a little bit of water to come true. The plants of the desert are not like other plants. They are sculptures of endurance, living monuments to the art of survival. In a world of extreme heat, relentless sun, and profound dryness, they have evolved strategies that are as strange as they are beautiful. They are masters of patience, of defense, and of conservation. To look at a desert plant is to see a story of adaptation written over millions of years, a story of how life can find a way to thrive in the most unforgiving of places. These are the ancient survivors, the quiet green hearts of the arid world. Perhaps the most iconic of all desert survivors is the saguaro cactus. Rising from the floor of the Sonoran Desert, like a great multi-armed sentinel, the saguaro is a world unto itself. It is a master of water storage. Its thick, waxy skin reduces evaporation, and its ribbed trunk can expand like an accordion to hold hundreds of gallons of water after a rainstorm. But the saguaro is more than a water tank. It is the cornerstone of its ecosystem. Its white, night-blooming flowers provide nectar for bats and insects. Its red fruit feeds birds and coyotes, and its sturdy trunk becomes a home for countless creatures. Gila woodpeckers and gilded flickers carve out nests in its flesh, and when they move on, these cool, shaded cavities become homes for elf owls, screech owls, and even small reptiles. The saguaro grows with incredible slowness. It can take 75 years before it grows its first arm, and it can live for over 150 years. Each one is a living apartment building, a restaurant, and a landmark, a testament to the fact that even in the desert, a single organism can become the center of a thriving community. In the Mojave Desert stands another strange and ancient survivor, the Joshua tree. It is not a true tree, but a species of yucca with a bizarre branching form that seems to be reaching in all directions at once. Its spiky, dagger-like leaves are designed to minimize water loss, and its thick, fibrous bark protects it from the extremes of temperature. But the Joshua tree's story is inextricably linked to that of a tiny nocturnal insect, the yucca moth. The Joshua tree can only be pollinated by this one species of moth. At night, the female moth gathers pollen from one flower, flies to another, and deliberately places the pollen on the stigma, ensuring fertilization. Then she lays her eggs in the flower's ovary. When the larvae hatch, they feed on some of the developing seeds, but always leave enough for the tree to reproduce. It is a perfect ancient partnership of coevolution. Neither the tree nor the moth could survive without the other. Each gnarled, twisted Joshua tree is a monument to this delicate nocturnal dance, a reminder that survival in the desert often depends on forming a bond of trust. In the coastal Namib Desert, one of the oldest deserts in the world, lives a plant that seems to defy all logic. It is called Welwitschia mirabilis, and it is a true living fossil, a relic from the time of the dinosaurs. A Welwitschia plant has only 2 leaves, just 2. But these 2 leaves grow continuously throughout the plant's entire life, which can be over 1,500 years. Over the centuries, the leaves become long, leathery, and strap-like, splitting and fraying at the ends until the plant looks like a tangled heap of debris on the desert floor. It gets its moisture not from rain, which is almost non-existent, but from the fog that rolls in from the Atlantic Ocean, absorbing water through tiny pores on its leaves. It is a plant of almost unbelievable persistence, a survivor from a lost world, sitting quietly in the gravel plains, slowly unfurling its 2 leaves over the course of millennia. It is a symbol of endurance in its purest form, a life stripped down to the bare essentials, and yet one that lasts for an eternity. Not all desert plants are so large or dramatic. The creosote bush, which covers vast stretches of the deserts of North America, is a humble-looking shrub with small, waxy leaves that give off a distinctive earthy smell after a rain. But the creosote bush holds a secret. It is one of the oldest living things on Earth. Individual bushes may only live for a few decades, but they reproduce by cloning themselves. As the old central crown of the plant dies, new stems sprout from the edges of its root system, forming an ever-expanding ring. Over thousands of years, these rings can grow to be over 50 feet in diameter. The most famous of these, the king clone, in the Mojave Desert, is estimated to be nearly 12,000 years old. That means it began its life as the last ice age was ending. It has stood in the same spot, slowly expanding while human civilization rose and fell. It is a quiet, unassuming testament to the power of persistence, a life that endures not through size or strength, but through the simple, patient act of starting again. And then there are the resurrection plants. In dry times, these small, fern-like plants, such as Selaginella lepidophylla, curl up into a tight brown, seemingly lifeless ball. They can remain in this dormant state for years, completely desiccated, appearing for all the world to be dead. But when the rains return, even after a long drought, something magical happens. Within a matter of hours, the plant unfurls its leaves, turning from brown to a vibrant green as it rehydrates and comes back to life. This ability to survive almost complete water loss is a rare and remarkable adaptation. It is not just waiting, it is a temporary surrender, a deep sleep from which it can awaken. To see a resurrection plant open is to witness a small, quiet miracle, a perfect symbol of the desert's promise that even in what seems like the end, the potential for life remains waiting for just a drop of water to begin again. When we imagine a desert, our minds often conjure images of sun-scorched sand, shimmering heat waves, and a world painted in shades of orange and gold. But the true definition of a desert has nothing to do with heat. It is defined by a lack of precipitation. A desert is any place that receives very little rain or snow. And by this measure, the largest and driest deserts on Earth are not hot, but profoundly, shatteringly cold. These are the cold deserts, landscapes of ice gravel and silence where life endures, not against the sun, but against the frost. The largest desert in the world is not the Sahara, but Antarctica. The Antarctic polar desert covers over 5.5 million square miles, and it is the driest, coldest, and highest continent on Earth. While the coastlines receive some snow, the interior of the continent is almost a perfect desert. Some areas known as the McMurdo Dry Valleys have not seen rain or snow for an estimated 2 million years. Here, there is no ice sheet, and the ground is a barren, rocky landscape that looks more like Mars than Earth. The winds that sweep down from the polar plateau, known as katabatic winds, can reach speeds of 200 miles per hour, scouring the land of any moisture and even any loose pebbles. Yet even here, life finds a way. Microscopic organisms, bacteria, algae, and fungi, live inside the rocks themselves in tiny pores where they are shielded from the wind and can absorb the faintest traces of moisture. It is a hidden ecosystem, a world of life on a scale so small it is almost invisible, a quiet testament to the fact that life will find a foothold even in the most extreme and desolate places on the planet. Far to the north, another great cold desert stretches across Mongolia and China, the Gobi Desert. The Gobi is a land of dramatic extremes. In the summer, temperatures can soar to over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, but in the winter, they can plummet to 40 below zero. It is a desert of gravel plains and rocky outcrops, not of vast sand seas. Its dryness comes from its location deep in the heart of Asia, and from the rain shadow of the Himalayan mountains, which block moisture-laden clouds from reaching it. The Gobi is a place of subtle beauty and surprising life. It is home to the last remaining wild Bactrian camels, with their shaggy coats and 2 humps perfectly adapted to the temperature swings. It is also a refuge for the elusive snow leopard, which stalks the Rocky Mountains at its edges. The Gobi is a desert that wears 2 faces, one of heat and one of ice. It is a reminder that dryness is not always about the sun, but about the patient, persistent absence of water, an absence that can be felt just as keenly in a blizzard as in a heat wave. In South America, the desert of Patagonia lies in the rain shadow of the Andes Mountains. As moist winds blow in from the Pacific Ocean, they are forced to rise over the towering Andes. As the air rises, it cools and drops its moisture as rain and snow on the western slopes. By the time the air crosses the mountains and descends into Patagonia, it is dry. The result is a vast wind-swept steppe, a cold, semi-arid desert that stretches for hundreds of miles. It is a landscape of spare minimalist beauty, with vast grasslands, low-lying shrubs, and distant snow-capped peaks on the horizon. It is a world shaped by wind. The wind is relentless, shaping the plants into low, cushion-like forms and carving the land into long, gentle swells. Life here is tough and resilient. Guanacos, relatives of the llama, roam in herds, and the tiny flightless Darwin's rhea pecks for seeds in the scrub. Patagonia is a desert born from a mountain range, a place made dry by the very geography that gives it its dramatic beauty. In the United States, the Great Basin Desert covers much of Nevada and parts of Utah, Idaho, and Oregon. It is a cold, high-altitude desert characterized by long, parallel mountain ranges separated by wide, flat valleys. This basin and range topography creates many small rain shadows, making the entire region arid. Instead of cacti, the dominant plant here is the sagebrush, a hardy silver-green shrub that covers the landscape in a vast fragrant sea. In the winter, the Great Basin receives its precipitation as snow and temperatures can be bitterly cold. This is the home of ancient bristlecone pines, which cling to the high mountain slopes, some of them the oldest living things on Earth. It is a quiet, contemplative desert, a place where the scale of time feels immense, and the dominant color is the soft, dusty green of sage. It challenges our idea of what a desert should look like, replacing sand with shrubs and scorching heat with a crisp, dry cold. These cold deserts, from the polar ice to the high-altitude steppes, expand our understanding of what it means to be an arid land. They teach us that the struggle for life is not always a battle against heat, but a universal quest for water. They are landscapes of profound silence, where the dominant sound is the wind and the dominant feeling is one of vast open space. To imagine these places is to travel to the quiet, frozen edges of the world and to find that even there, in the cold and the dryness, life holds on patient and enduring. Deserts are often seen as places of emptiness, but they are also incredible keepers of time. Their dry, stable environments, with little water to rot away organic matter, and with shifting sands to quickly bury remains, are perfect for preservation. Because of this, deserts are among the world's greatest treasure troves of fossils. They are natural museums where the stories of ancient life, from the age of dinosaurs to the dawn of humanity, are preserved in stone. To walk through a desert is to walk across a landscape layered with ghosts, a place where the past is not gone but merely sleeping, waiting to be uncovered. One of the most stunning examples of this preservation is the Petrified Forest National Park in Arizona. What is now a dry, high-altitude desert was once, over 200 million years ago, a lush, tropical floodplain covered in a vast forest of towering conifers. As these ancient trees died, they fell into the rivers and were buried by sediment rich in silica from nearby volcanic eruptions. Over millions of years, groundwater carrying dissolved silica seeped into the logs. The silica slowly crystallized, replacing the wood's organic fibers molecule by molecule. The result is a forest of trees turned to solid quartz, perfectly preserving the details of their bark, their rings, and their cellular structure. The logs are now scattered across the landscape, their stony surfaces glittering with a rainbow of colors from trace minerals like iron and manganese. To touch one of these petrified logs is to touch a piece of a world that no longer exists, a forest from a time before the continents had even drifted into their current positions, a silent, beautiful echo of a greener past. The Gobi Desert in Asia is another world-famous fossil site known as a dinosaur graveyard. In the 1920s, expeditions led by the explorer Roy Chapman Andrews uncovered a wealth of dinosaur remains in the Gobi's dramatic flaming cliffs. They found the first known dinosaur eggs, proving for the first time that dinosaurs laid eggs like reptiles. They also found the skeletons of new species like the Protoceratops and the Velociraptor. The fine wind-blown sand of the Gobi was perfect for preserving these remains. When a dinosaur died, it was often quickly buried by a sandstorm, its bones protected from scavengers and the elements. The fossils found here are often complete and articulated, sometimes even capturing moments of life, frozen in time, such as a famous fossil of a velociraptor locked in combat with a protoceratops. These discoveries give us a vivid snapshot of life 80 million years ago, a world of dinosaurs thriving in what was then a semi-arid but not yet fully desert environment. The Gobi's fossils remind us that even the most fearsome creatures are eventually claimed by time, their stories left to be read in the silent language of bone and stone. Deserts also preserve the stories of the mammals that came after the dinosaurs. The Fayum Depression in Egypt's Sahara Desert is one of the most important sites in the world for understanding the evolution of early mammals, especially primates. What is now a hyper-arid desert was 30 million years ago, a warm, swampy forest bordering an ancient sea. The fossil record here is incredibly rich, preserving the remains of some of the earliest ancestors of elephants, monkeys, and apes. Scientists have found the skulls of tiny lemur-like primates and the bones of giant pig-like beasts. These fossils help us trace our own deep evolutionary history, showing us the world from which our distant ancestors emerged. The dry sands of the Sahara have acted as a perfect vault, protecting these fragile bones for millions of years, allowing us to piece together the first chapters of the age of mammals. The Great Rift Valley, which cuts through the deserts of eastern Africa, is perhaps the most important place on Earth for understanding human origins. The valley is a geologically active region where layers of ancient Earth are constantly being pushed to the surface, revealing a long and continuous record of life. It is here, in places like Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania and Hadar in Ethiopia, that some of the most famous hominid fossils have been found. The discovery of Lucy, the 3.2 million-year-old skeleton of an Australopithecus afarensis, revolutionized our understanding of human evolution, proving that our ancestors walked upright long before they developed large brains. The dry, desert-like conditions of the Rift Valley have preserved not only bones, but also ancient stone tools, and the footprints of our ancestors left in volcanic ash that later hardened into rock. These are the most intimate traces of our past moments of our ancestors' lives captured for eternity. The desert here is not just a landscape. It is our ancestral home, the cradle from which all of humanity emerged. The desert's power of preservation extends beyond bones. In the Atacama Desert in Chile, one of the driest places on Earth, archaeologists have found the world's oldest artificially mummified human remains. The Chinchorro people, who lived in this coastal desert over 7,000 years ago, long before the Egyptians began their famous mummification practices, developed a complex ritual for preserving their dead. They would carefully remove the skin and organs, reinforce the skeleton with sticks, and stuff the body with plants and clay, before reattaching the skin and often adding a clay mask and a wig. The extreme dryness of the Atacama preserved these mummies almost perfectly, giving us an unprecedented look into the spiritual beliefs and daily lives of this ancient culture. These quiet sleeping figures tell a story of a people who, even in one of the world's harshest environments, found a way to honor their dead and seek a form of eternity. These echoes in the stone, the petrified trees, the dinosaur bones, the fossilized footprints, all tell the same story. The desert is a keeper of memories. It holds the past with a gentle, patient grip, protecting it from the decay that claims everything in wetter, more forgiving climates. To explore the deserts of the world is to be an archaeologist, to be a paleontologist, to be a time traveler. It is to understand that the land we walk on is layered with stories, and that emptiness is an illusion. The desert is full not with life in the present, but with the silent, enduring presence of all the lives that came before. In the stark, open landscapes of the desert, there are few places to hide. Life is exposed, laid bare under the vast sky and the relentless sun. For this reason, survival here often depends on the art of not being seen. The desert is a grand theater of camouflage and mimicry, where animals have evolved breathtaking strategies to blend into their surroundings, to become one with the sand, the stone, and the shadow. This is the art of vanishing, a silent, deadly game of hide and seek played out every day, where the prize is life itself. One of the masters of this art is the horned lizard. Found in the deserts of North America, this small, flat-bodied reptile is covered in a patterned skin of mottled browns, grays, and tans that allows it to disappear almost completely against the sandy, gravelly soil. It will often half bury itself in the sand, leaving only its eyes and horns exposed, becoming just another ripple in the texture of the ground. But its camouflage is only its first line of defense. If a predator, like a coyote or a fox, gets too close, the horned lizard has a truly bizarre and startling trick. It can increase the blood pressure in its head until tiny vessels in the corners of its eyes rupture, squirting a stream of foul-tasting blood at its attacker, sometimes up to a distance of 5 feet. This shocking, unexpected act can confuse the predator long enough for the lizard to make its escape. It is a creature that has perfected both the art of blending in and the art of the dramatic surprise. The snakes of the desert are also experts in the art of concealment. The sidewinder rattlesnake of the American Southwest has a pale sandy coloration that makes it nearly invisible on the desert floor. It gets its name from its unique form of locomotion, moving in a sideways S-shaped motion that allows it to travel efficiently over loose sand while keeping most of its body off the hot ground. When it stops, it can almost melt into the landscape. But perhaps the most perfectly camouflaged snake is the Paringais adder found in the Namib Desert. This small viper hunts by burying itself in the sand, leaving only its eyes and the tip of its tail exposed. It then wiggles the black tip of its tail, using it as a lure to attract curious lizards and birds, which mistake it for a struggling insect. When the prey comes close to investigate, the snake strikes with lightning speed. It is a hunter that becomes the landscape, using its own body as both bait and trap. The insects of the desert have evolved an even wider array of disguises. Some, like the desert grasshopper, have bodies that perfectly mimic the color and texture of the sand. Others have become masters of mimicking inedible objects. The stone plant, or lithops, is actually a succulent plant that looks so much like a pebble that grazing animals pass it by. But there are also insects that mimic these stone plants, and there are stick insects that have evolved to look exactly like the dry, brittle twigs of desert shrubs, remaining perfectly motionless for hours to avoid detection. This is a world of layers of deception, where plants look like stones and insects look like plants. Each creature is wearing a costume, a disguise, perfected over millions of years of evolutionary pressure, a quiet masterpiece of natural artistry designed for the sole purpose of disappearing in plain sight. The birds of the desert also rely on camouflage, especially those that nest on the ground. The sand grouse, a medium-sized bird found in the deserts of Africa and Asia, has feathers intricately patterned in shades of brown, gray, and buff that allow it to blend seamlessly into the dry, stony ground. This is especially important for the female while she is incubating her eggs. She will sit perfectly still on her nest, almost invisible to predators passing just feet away. But the sand grouse has another more astonishing adaptation related to water. The male bird can fly up to 30 miles to a waterhole. There, he will wade into the water and soak his specially adapted belly feathers, which can absorb and hold a significant amount of water. He then flies back to the nest where the chicks drink the water directly from his feathers. It is a living canteen, a remarkable solution to the problem of raising a family in a world without water. This art of vanishing is not just about avoiding predators. It is also about enduring the environment. By blending in, animals can avoid the worst of the sun's heat. By remaining still, they can conserve precious energy. Every pattern, every color, every shape is a solution to a problem posed by the desert. It is a reminder that in this stark, unforgiving world, the most successful strategy is often not to fight the environment, but to become a part of it, to be so perfectly attuned to the light, the color, and the texture of the land that you cease to be a separate thing, and instead become just another note in the desert's long, silent song of survival. To see these creatures, or rather, to try to see them, is to appreciate the subtle, hidden beauty of the desert, a beauty that reveals itself only to the most patient of observers. While some deserts are plains of stone and gravel, others are home to one of the most mesmerizing and dynamic landscapes on Earth, the sand sea, known to geologists as an erg. A sand sea is a vast area of desert covered in wind-swept dunes, a landscape that is not solid, but fluid, constantly in motion. These are not just collections of dunes. They are entire ecosystems of sand where the dunes themselves move like slow-motion waves in a great silent ocean. To be in a sand sea is to be in a world where the ground itself is alive, breathing, and shifting with the wind. The largest sand sea in the world is the Rub al-Khali, which means the empty quarter in the Arabian Peninsula. It is a place of almost unimaginable scale and emptiness, covering an area larger than France. The dunes here are massive, some rising over 800 feet high, their crests sharp as blades against the deep blue sky. The wind is the only architect here, and it is constantly at work, shaping the sand into a myriad of forms, long linear dunes that run parallel to each other for miles, crescent-shaped barchans that march slowly across the plains, and complex star dunes that grow in place for centuries. The silence in the Rub al-Khali is said to be absolute, a profound stillness, broken only by the whisper of the wind and the faint singing sound of the shifting sand. It is a world stripped down to its essentials: sand, wind, and light. In southwestern Africa, the Namib Sand Sea is thought to be the oldest desert in the world, having been arid for at least 55 million years. The dunes here have a striking deep reddish-orange color, a sign of their great age. Over millions of years, the iron in the sand grains has slowly oxidized or rusted, giving the dunes their fiery hue. The dunes of the Namib are also among the tallest in the world, with some like the famous Dune 7 soaring over 200 feet high. This sand sea is unique because it meets the Atlantic Ocean, creating a surreal landscape where towering red dunes plunge directly into the cold, foggy sea. This is the place where the darkling beetle performs its morning ritual, harvesting fog from the air. The Namib is a desert where time feels slow and deep, a place where ancient dunes hold the memory of millions of years of wind and sun. The movement of the sand itself is a quiet, beautiful process. It begins with a process called saltation. As the wind blows, it picks up individual grains of sand and lifts them a short distance into the air. The grain then falls back to the surface, and its impact dislodges other grains, which are then lifted by the wind in turn. The result is a thin, shimmering layer of sand, a sand sheet constantly flowing just above the surface of the dune. It is this process repeated billions of times that causes the dunes to migrate. A crescent-shaped Barchan dune, for example, moves by sand saltating up its gentle windward slope and then avalanching down its steep leeward face or slip face. The dune literally rolls over itself, moving grain by grain across the desert, sometimes at a rate of several dozen feet per year. As the wind blows over the surface of the sand, it also creates smaller, more delicate patterns, ripples. These tiny parallel ridges form on the surface of every dune, giving the sand a texture like corduroy. They are a miniature version of the dunes themselves, a fractal pattern that repeats at different scales. The size and spacing of the ripples depend on the speed of the wind and the size of the sand grains. To look closely at the surface of a dune is to see a landscape within a landscape, a world of miniature peaks and valleys constantly being created and erased by the wind. They are the desert's temporary brushstrokes, a fleeting signature of the air's movement. Life in a sand sea is specialized and rare. There are few plants that can survive in the shifting sand, but some creatures have adapted perfectly. The golden mole of the Namib Desert is a small, blind mammal that swims through the loose sand hunting for insects. Its body is streamlined, its ears are tiny holes, and its eyes are covered by skin. It navigates its sandy subterranean world by sensing vibrations. The shovel-snouted lizard dances on the hot sand, lifting its feet in an alternating pattern to keep from getting burned. These creatures have learned to live in a world that is not solid ground but a fluid medium. They are the sailors of the sand sea, perfectly attuned to the rhythms of its slow, silent tides. To stand in a great sand sea at dawn or dusk is one of the most profound experiences the natural world has to offer. The low-angled light throws the dunes into sharp relief, creating a dramatic landscape of flowing curves, sharp crests, and deep velvet shadows. The world becomes a study in form and light. The colors shift from soft pink and orange to deep purple and blue. There is a sense of immense peace and purity in these places, a feeling of being in a world that is clean, simple, and eternal. The rivers of sand move with a patience that is beyond human understanding, a reminder that the world is shaped by forces that are slow, gentle, and unimaginably powerful. In our modern world, true silence is a rare and precious thing. We are surrounded by a constant hum of traffic, of machines of voices. But in the heart of the desert, a different kind of quiet exists. It is not just an absence of noise, but a presence. A deep, profound silence that seems to have weight and texture. This is the voice of emptiness, and it is one of the desert's most powerful and transformative features. To experience it is to learn to listen in a new way, to become aware of the subtle, hidden soundscape of the arid world. The quality of silence in the desert is shaped by the landscape itself. The vast open spaces and the soft porous sand absorb sound rather than reflecting it. There are no dense forests or tall buildings to create echoes. A sound made in the desert, a call, a footstep, seems to be swallowed by the landscape almost as soon as it is made. This lack of echo can be disorienting at first. It changes our perception of distance and space. But as the mind adjusts, it brings a sense of profound peace. In this stillness, the small sounds that are usually drowned out become clear and distinct. You can hear the faint whisper of your own breathing, the soft beat of your own heart. The desert's silence is not empty. It is a canvas that allows the smallest sounds to be heard. The most constant sound in the desert is the voice of the wind. But it is not a single voice. It is a whole orchestra. The wind sounds different depending on what it moves across. When it blows over the sharp crest of a sand dune, it can create a soft, sighing whisper. When it moves through the narrow passages of a slot canyon, it can rise to a low, mournful moan. When it rustles the dry leaves of a creosote bush, it makes a sound like a soft, rhythmic shaker. In some places, the wind carves small holes and hollows in the rock, and as it passes over them, it can create flute-like musical notes. These are sometimes called aeolian harps, natural instruments played by the wind. To listen to the wind in the desert is to hear the landscape itself speaking each surface, giving the air a different tone, a different character. When the wind dies down, especially at night, another layer of the soundscape is revealed, the voices of the desert's creatures. These are rarely loud or dramatic. They are small, subtle, and widely spaced. You might hear the high-pitched chirping call of a gecko, a sound that seems to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. You might hear the soft, low hoot of an owl, a sound that carries for miles in the still, dry air. Far in the distance, you might hear the yipping howl of a coyote, a sound that is both lonely and beautiful, a perfect expression of the wild, open space. The rustle of a kangaroo rat in the bushes, the faint, dry click of a beetle's legs on a stone. These are the sounds of life in the desert. They are quiet and infrequent, and in the profound silence, each one feels like an event, a small punctuation mark in the long, still sentence of the night. The desert's dryness also changes the way sound travels. With little moisture in the air to absorb sound waves, sounds can travel much farther than they would in a more humid environment. This is why a distant train or a far-off voice can sound deceptively close. This clarity of sound, combined with the clarity of the air, can play tricks on the senses, creating a world where distances are hard to judge. It is a world where you feel both intimately connected to your immediate surroundings and acutely aware of the vast empty spaces beyond. But perhaps the most powerful sound in the desert is the sound of absolute stillness. There are moments, often in the calm before dawn, or in the deep of the night, when the wind stops, the creatures are silent, and there is no sound at all. In these moments, the silence is so profound, it feels like something you can touch, a soft, heavy blanket covering the world. In our noisy lives, we rarely, if ever, experience this. To be in such a silence can be deeply restorative. It allows the mind to quiet down, to let go of the constant chatter of thought, and to simply be present. It is in this silence that one can feel the slow, steady turning of the earth, the vast, patient rhythm of geological time. The desert also has sounds below the range of human hearing. Infrasound, a low-frequency sound that we feel more than we hear, is generated by many natural phenomena, including wind blowing over mountain ranges, distant storms, and even the subtle geological tremors of the earth. In the open spaces of the desert, these low-frequency waves can travel for hundreds of miles without obstruction. While we may not consciously perceive them, some scientists believe that our bodies can still respond to them, perhaps contributing to the sense of awe or even unease that people sometimes feel in vast, empty landscapes. It is a hidden layer of the desert's voice, a vibration that speaks directly to the ancient instinctual parts of our being. The voice of emptiness is a gift. It is an invitation to slow down, to listen, and to notice the world in a way we rarely do. It teaches us that silence is not an absence, but a presence, a space that holds its own beauty and its own wisdom. It is a reminder that sometimes the most important things are not the things we see or say, but the quiet spaces in between. In the desert, the relationship with rain is one of intense longing and rare fulfillment. The sky can be a vast, empty bowl of blue for months on end. So when clouds do gather and the promise of rain appears, it is a momentous event. But the desert has a unique and poignant way of sometimes denying that promise. This is the phenomenon of virga, or phantom rain, a beautiful, ghostly, and slightly melancholic sight where streaks of rain fall from a cloud but evaporate in the hot, dry air long before they ever reach the ground. To see virga is to witness a spectacle of longing. From a distance, it looks like dark, hazy curtains or delicate jellyfish-like tendrils hanging beneath a cloud. You can see the rain, a visible shaft of precipitation falling toward the thirsty earth. But as it descends, it seems to fade, to dissolve into the air, vanishing into invisibility 1,000 feet or more above the desert floor. It is a storm that never arrives, a drink that is never drunk. The air beneath the cloud may grow cooler, and the smell of rain, that rich earthy scent called petrichor, may even drift on the wind, a tantalizing hint of the moisture that is so close yet so far away. The physics behind virga is simple. Raindrops fall from a cloud high in the atmosphere where the air is cool. But as they descend into the much warmer, drier air of the desert below, they begin to evaporate. The lower the humidity, the faster they evaporate. In the extreme dryness of the desert, the air can act like a sponge, soaking up the falling rain so quickly that the drops completely disappear before they can complete their journey to the ground. This is most common in the summer, when the temperature difference between the upper and lower atmosphere is greatest. Virga is a perfect illustration of the desert's power over water. The air itself is so thirsty that it drinks the rain from the sky. While virga may be a disappointment for the life on the ground, it has a profound effect on the atmosphere. The process of evaporation is a cooling process. As the liquid water in the raindrops turns into water vapor, it absorbs a great deal of heat from the surrounding air. This can create powerful downdrafts of cold, dense air, which then hit the ground and spread out in all directions. This phenomenon is known as a microburst, and it can produce sudden, violent, and localized winds. A microburst from a Virga storm can be dangerous for aircraft and can kick up massive dust storms on the ground, known as haboobs. So even though the rain itself never lands, its atmospheric effects can be dramatic and powerful. The phantom rain has a very real impact. For observers on the ground, Virga is one of the most beautiful and evocative sights the desert has to offer, especially at sunrise or sunset. When the low-angled light of the sun catches the falling streaks of rain, they can light up in spectacular colors, shades of orange, pink, and gold against a darkening sky. It looks like a celestial watercolor painting, a soft, ethereal brushstroke connecting the cloud to the earth, even if it never quite touches. It is a sight that captures the essence of the desert, a world of immense beauty, of powerful natural forces, and of a constant underlying sense of yearning. The concept of phantom rain has also found its way into art and literature as a powerful metaphor. It represents unfulfilled hopes, unattainable desires, or a sense of something beautiful that is just out of reach. It speaks to the feeling of being close to something you long for, yet being unable to attain it. It is a visual representation of the bittersweet nature of life itself. But in the desert, it is not a metaphor. It is a real and common weather event, a part of the daily rhythm of the sky. Virga also plays a role in the desert's subtle water cycle. Even though the water doesn't reach the ground as rain, the water vapor that is added to the lower atmosphere can increase the local humidity. This slight increase in moisture can sometimes be enough to help clouds build up and produce a real rainstorm later on or in a nearby area. So the phantom rain is not entirely lost. It is a precursor, a first attempt, a step in the long and difficult process of bringing water to a dry land. To sit and watch Virga trail from the clouds is a meditative experience. It is a lesson in acceptance and in the beauty of the incomplete. It is a reminder that not every process in nature has a neat and tidy conclusion. Sometimes the journey itself is the story. The falling, the evaporating, the fading away. This is the life of phantom rain. It is the desert sky's own quiet poem about desire and distance. A beautiful, silent story that unfolds between the heavens and the earth, but belongs fully to neither. The desert does not easily forget. In its dry stable, embrace the traces of those who came before, can last for millennia. While forests overgrow ruins and cities build upon their own past, the desert often preserves the faintest of human marks, turning the landscape into a vast open-air library of history. These are the footprints in time, the rock art, the lost cities, and the ancient trails that tell the story of humanity's long and intimate relationship with the world's arid lands. To travel through the desert is to travel through human memory itself. Scattered across the rock faces and canyon walls of deserts all over the world are petroglyphs, images carved into the stone by ancient peoples. These are not paintings, but carvings created by chipping away the dark desert varnish on the surface of a rock to reveal the lighter stone beneath. They are a form of communication that has endured for thousands of years. The images are often symbolic spirals that may represent the sun or the cycle of life, geometric patterns, and figures of animals like bighorn sheep, lizards, and birds. There are also human-like figures, sometimes with elaborate headdresses or in dancing postures. We do not know the exact meaning of all these symbols. They may have been part of religious rituals, records of hunting success maps of constellations, or simply a form of artistic expression. But what is certain is that they represent a deep connection between the people who made them and the landscape they inhabited. To stand before a panel of petroglyphs is to receive a message from a distant, silent past, a story told in the universal language of images. In some deserts, the footprints of time are not just images, but entire cities. The most famous of these is Petra, the lost city of the Nabateans, carved directly into the red sandstone cliffs of the Jordanian desert. For centuries, Petra was a thriving center of trade, a vital hub on the caravan routes that linked Arabia, Egypt, and Syria. The Nabateans were masters of water engineering. They built a complex system of dam cisterns and channels that allowed them to create a lush artificial oasis in the heart of the desert, supporting a population of tens of thousands. Their most famous structures, like the treasury and the monastery, are not buildings in the traditional sense, but facades carved with breathtaking detail into the solid rock. For centuries after the trade routes shifted, Petra was abandoned and known only to the local Bedouin. Its rediscovery by the West in the 19th century was like finding a city from a fairy tale. Petra is a testament to human ingenuity, a story of how a civilization can flourish in the harshest of environments by working with the land, not against it. Long before cities like Petra, humanity's relationship with the desert was one of movement. The great deserts of the world were not barriers but highways. For thousands of years, trade routes crisscrossed the Sahara, the Gobi, and the deserts of Arabia. The most famous of these was the Silk Road, a network of trails that connected China with the Mediterranean. Camel caravans, the ships of the desert, would travel for months carrying silk, spices, and other precious goods across some of the most forbidding landscapes on Earth. Along these routes, oasis towns grew into bustling multicultural centers where ideas, religions, and technologies were exchanged along with goods. These ancient trails are no longer visible in many places, but their legacy remains. They were the threads that connected civilizations, the first global trade network, and they were made possible by the desert's vast open spaces. The emptiness of the desert was not a void, but a bridge. The desert also preserves more intimate traces of the past. In some places, you can find the faint, worn paths of ancient foot trails ground into the rock by thousands of years of footsteps. In others, you can find small, circular arrangements of stones that mark the site of a temporary camp or a spiritual site. The desert varnish that covers the rocks, the same dark coating that was used for petroglyphs, can itself be a clock. Because it forms so slowly, scientists can date the age of rock surfaces by measuring the thickness of the varnish, helping them to date the petroglyphs carved into it. Even the tools of the past are preserved. You might find a flint arrowhead or a piece of pottery dropped by a traveler thousands of years ago lying on the surface as if it were left there only yesterday. These footprints in time are a powerful reminder that we are not the first to find beauty and meaning in the desert. Humans have been living and traveling through and being inspired by these landscapes for as long as we have been human. The desert has been a place of spiritual retreat, of artistic creation, and of incredible innovation. It has challenged us, and in doing so, it has helped to shape who we are. To see these ancient marks upon the land is to feel a sense of humility and connection. It is to realize that our own lives are just a brief moment in a much longer story, a story that is written not in books, but in the very stones of the earth. The desert holds these stories safe, preserving them for us to find, to wonder at, and to learn from. Our journey through the desert has taken us across vast landscapes, from the singing sands to the frozen valleys, from the starlit skies to the canyons of stone. We have seen the great and the dramatic. But the desert's final and perhaps most profound secret is not vast, but microscopic. It is the unseen desert, a world of tiny organisms that live on and in the soil, forming a living, breathing skin that holds the entire ecosystem together. This is the world of cryptobiotic soil, of tardigrades, and of the hidden chemistry that makes life in the arid world possible. Across vast stretches of the desert, the ground is covered not by loose sand, but by a dark, bumpy, fragile crust. This is cryptobiotic soil. The name means hidden life, and it is a perfect description. This crust is a complex community of cyanobacteria, lichens, mosses, algae, and fungi, all woven together in an intricate living mat. When it is dry, the crust is dormant and brittle, but when it rains, it comes to life, turning a dark greenish black as the organisms within it begin to photosynthesize. This living skin is the foundation of the desert ecosystem. Its sticky filaments bind the soil particles together, preventing the wind from blowing the sand away. It absorbs water like a sponge, slowing evaporation and keeping moisture in the soil. And some of the cyanobacteria in the crust can fix nitrogen, pulling it from the atmosphere and converting it into a form that plants can use as fertilizer. In a world with so little soil and so few nutrients, this living crust is what makes it possible for wildflowers and shrubs to grow. It is a fragile, humble, and utterly essential part of the desert, a reminder that the greatest strength sometimes comes from the smallest and most overlooked of things. The signs in many deserts that read, "Don't bust the crust," are a plea to protect this ancient, slow-growing foundation of life. Within this crust, and in the tiny patches of moss and lichen that cling to desert rocks, lives one of the most resilient creatures known to science, the tardigrade, also known as a water bear or a moss piglet. The tardigrade is a microscopic 8-legged invertebrate that is almost indestructible. When conditions become harsh, when the desert dries out or freezes or gets too hot, the tardigrade can enter a state of suspended animation called cryptobiosis. It curls up into a tiny, lifeless-looking ball called a tun, retracts its legs, and expels almost all the water from its body. In this state, it can survive almost anything near absolute zero temperatures. Temperatures well above the boiling point of water, crushing pressures, and even the vacuum and radiation of outer space. It can remain in this state for decades. And then when it comes into contact with water, again, it rehydrates and walks away as if nothing happened. The desert is full of these tiny patient survivors, waiting in the dust for the next dew or rainfall. They are a profound example of life's tenacity, a creature that has mastered the art not just of living, but of waiting. The desert is also shaped by the unseen chemistry of its microbes. The dark desert varnish that coats the rocks, the canvas for ancient petroglyphs, is itself a product of life. It is a thin layer of clay minerals cemented to the rock surface by colonies of manganese and iron-oxidizing bacteria. These microbes slowly draw these minerals from the environment and deposit them on the rock building up the dark, shiny patina over thousands of years. The varnish is a living shield protecting the rock from further weathering, and its slow growth rate allows geologists to use it as a tool for dating the age of landforms. It is a form of life that expresses itself as geology, a slow, patient painting of the landscape on a millennial scale. This unseen desert, the world of the microscopic, is the true secret to the desert's resilience. It is a world of cooperation, of patience, and of incredible toughness. It is what holds the sand in place, what fertilizes the soil, and what endures the longest droughts. It is a reminder that what we see on the surface, the cacti, the foxes, the great arches of stone, is all supported by a hidden foundation of life that is too small for our eyes to notice. And so our quiet journey through the desert comes to a close. We have wandered from the vastness of the sand seas to the intimacy of a single glowing scorpion, from the phantom rain in the sky to the ancient water hidden deep underground. We have learned that the desert is not an empty place, but a world full of secrets of strange beauty and of life that is both fierce and fragile. It is a world that teaches patience, resilience, and the art of seeing what is hidden. As you let these thoughts settle, imagine yourself in the desert at night. The air is cool and still. The sand beneath you holds the last warmth of the day. Above you, the sky is a river of stars, and all around you is a silence so deep you can feel it. In this great quiet, you are a part of the landscape, as ancient and as peaceful as the stones and the stars themselves. You are a part of a story that is measured in millennia, a story of wind, of water, of life, and of time. There is nothing more you need to do now. The journey is over. Let your mind rest. Let your breath be slow and even. Let the quiet of the desert fill you, and let it carry you gently into sleep. The world will be here when you wake, but for now, there is only this moment of peace, this stillness, this gentle drift into dreams. Sleep well.